joining us on About That. In this episode, I am very pleased to be able to introduce you to the incredible and extraordinary Turkish designer Arzu Kaprol. Now, Arzu's clothing line goes beyond what you might think of as haute couture, and we won't just be talking about clothing in this episode. In fact, her work sits on the intersection of fashion, technology, and spirituality. Yep, spirituality. More than cosmetic beauty, there is a transcendent cosmological sensibility to her art. You can check some of her shows on YouTube if you haven't had the fortune of being able to see them in person. But don't do that just yet. First, listen to the episode and get to know Arzu a little bit better.
Yüksel suyun alevinde, ışığın içinde, sesin kalbimde. My task is to make people feel better than a moment ago. This can be through my fashion, through my outfits, and through my shows. Because we are a group of friends that create the music, the scenery, the words, the idea. Everything is starting from an idea. And I write the whole script out of that idea, and I try to create a world, and then the clothes come. So it's the way that I know how to express myself through outfits.
You've been doing fashion for how long now? It's been several decades, hasn't it?
I'm afraid it is. It's been almost like I think 20 years, because my story is my grandmother, who is now 101, and my mother, who is 78 by now. They were both great couturier. So I have been raised in a family, an environment of very skillful women. And they were creating their own fashion, but also they were helping their friends, and they were also making it as a business. So that was my luck, actually, and that was the reason probably at a very young age I was able to know what I want to do in my life. So I studied fashion design in Istanbul Fine Arts Academy, and then to Paris. And at the age of 21, I was able to receive an award of Beymen Academia, which is Bergdorf Goodman of Turkey in a way. And I was awarded as their young talent creative designer, and I was able to receive some support to open my own studio.
There is a kind of as inside, so it will be reflected outside. It is a very spiritual foundation, isn't it, then, that goes into all of your designs?
I wish you were able to be there and feel the original atmosphere. Not only the shows, but also the dresses. They are mainly created from inside out. So the main important thing is, as it is in ourself, if we can create a nice work inside, then the outside will show also. That's my way of thinking in general, in everything.
Could you tell us a little bit about that then, the spiritual foundation or the grounding of the kind of work that you put out?
To me, design, all aspects of design, it's a multidisciplinary process, and it's getting more and more multidisciplinary as we are communicating a lot easier with different disciplines. So I find it fascinating as remembering ourselves as human beings and the world itself. It's imagine how magical everything is. We need everything to be such a balance in this earth. So we need clouds, we need rain, we need everything just to breathe, just to survive, just to look at each other. So just thinking, such a creative process, this whole thing makes me feel more connected. All beings are totally connected. So within that case, we should be more tolerant in a period that tolerance is getting less and less in this period. So I think these are things that we should remind ourselves as human beings, as using this much of space on this planet. We should be more careful about each other and ourselves. It's a very fragile life, and we are on this earth just to enjoy the journey. with responsibility.
How did you begin to discover this kind of belief system? Was this something you were raised with at home? Did you pick this up living in Turkey through your friends? How did you get involved in that kind of belief about the world, especially as you put it, at a time such as this where it is very difficult and many other people are very fractured right now?
I was born and raised in Turkey, in Bursa and Istanbul, which are very also spiritual cities. But the way that we take our religion is not the way. It's not orthodox at all. It's something very tolerant, very accepting, very humanitarian. Even though it doesn't seem this way from the Western world these days, but it's something even we are shocked watching. So I think it's a combination of all.
How do you reflect all of this? For example, in your last line, your last showing, how do you even begin to show such a spiritual belief in clothes?
It is something that when I start writing or sketching, it generally comes out with a sentence, with some words, and then the show comes out into my mind, and then the music comes out. So it feels like, that's why, for example, I was taking this interconnectivity, imagining it as an invisible red line in connecting everything. So those lines, I thought it could be only expressed by some fringes. So those red fringes that are very visible, in some of them are like very narrowed, light and less, but in some of them taking all the space on the designs. So with some, the shapes are very human oriented, but also with some open V-necks, or giving some extra space surrounding the human body. That was the main thing. Those visible red fringes and these lines are connecting everything. And I wanted to put it in a way that whenever we move, we create an invisible space around us. And with the fringes, that space, we can see that space moving around us. So that's why it feels a little bit more fragile. And within that fragile feeling, it's also at the same time feminine. So I also preferred to accept the fact that we can also remind ourselves as women, we are fragile but strong, fragile and strong. So once we can accept our way of seeing things, our way of creating things as women, because we are the creators in this life. So we can be at the same time woman and strong and independent, beautiful and fragile.
Yeah, that is very interesting when you say indeed that the women are the creators in this life. I mean, how do people respond to your shows? Because they can be very moving. Have you seen any kind of, overly emotional responses or anything like that tells you I am getting my message across?
Exactly. I mean, since few years, especially last few years, at the end of my shows, I'm receiving messages like, after watching your show, we never thought that we would cry at the end of a fashion show from happiness or from fulfillment.
Right.
That is the biggest response I think I can ever get.
Wow.
Creating an emotion.
And it isn't just cloth that you're working with, right? I understand there's already 3D printing going on
yes,
as well.
Yes, of course. I'd love to accept all technologies surrounding us. So if we are living on this earth at this moment of this planet, I think we can use everything. So I love to use 3D printing. I love to use hologram effects. I love to use latest technology, and I love to use it with human force. So we create everything with our hands, but we can express some of them through 3D printing or some of them with hand knitting. So it's a whole combination of many processes.
How do you think that all of this will change for you in the coming years? I mean, it's been over 2 decades. How have you changed already from the time that you started to where you are now? And how has that mixed in with your own spiritual beliefs?
I think we are trying to understand more and more every day that each one of us are so unique. We behave the way that is the best solution for our journeys through this lifetime. So I think in my way of expressing my fashion, my design, I go into a certain area that this unique feeling will be able to be created more. We are a combination of body, spirit, and mind. So these three unique, let's say, I don't want to use the word force, but these three, let's say, units combine in such a perfect way that we create our paths. So I would dream of creating different outfits, and I would be able to create something that we can feel our uniqueness also with clothes.
How do you ground yourself, like on days that maybe you wake up and you're not feeling as positive about where you're at? Or do you even have days like that, bad days?
Of course, of course, of course. There are two things that I love watching, the sunset and the sunrise. It makes me feel confident that when the sun sets, I love the feeling that I know tomorrow morning it will rise again. This is something I think that makes me feel going, because imagine, like, for millions and millions of years, sun has never gave up of rising again. So I think even this can be a reason for me to wake up, get out of that bed, which is not every day easy, and continue the process, the journey, and try to perform my best.
Is this how you also raise? I mean, you have 2 young sons.
Yes.
Is this also something that you teach them so that they might grow up with that belief as well?
I try to, because when we name something as good or bad, or as shiny or rainy, we define them as something positive and negative. This is something that I'm totally against, because as there's days and nights, we all need them. As there's rain and sun, we all need them. So it's just a process. It's a balance that it is perfect as it is. So if we are living in a period that doesn't seem really perfect for us, doesn't seem enjoyable at all even, it's a part of the big process. So definitely if we are living through that, we need that. It's not something to blame ourselves from something we did or we did not, but just to see, okay, one thing we know for sure, this too will pass and the sun will rise again. If that's something good for us, or if it's a super bright day and we don't want sun 40 degrees anymore, then there will be night again. So it's a constant process, and this is the miracle itself.
Do you have a timeline, like a period by which you will say, okay, I will stop in 10 more years? Or when do you think you will feel like you have done your work? Because you speak about what you do very much indeed like a mission, like a soul mission. Do you have a deadline?
No, I don't have a deadline. I don't, but it can even be tomorrow. So it's not something that I plan on a strategy. But the thing is, I try to do my best in the process that I know best. So tomorrow this can be different. Tomorrow there can be something else. The only thing that I can teach myself, hopefully, is that taking each and every road, I can still enjoy the journey. I can still look at smell the roses, and I can still maybe add some more roses to the journey. So this is my task, and it's not necessarily always creating fashion. It can be something else. Yes. But for the last 20 years, this is the thing that I was doing. So this was the expression that I was expressing my ideas through this. But this can change, or one day I can decide not to do anything. And maybe read for 6 months. This can also happen.
Yes.
So it's nothing is really concrete in this life. And yes, it's a very good thing to plan ahead. It's a very good thing to plan our lives and invest and create. But we can also be flexible. I think we can teach ourselves to be flexible, because sometimes that's also very necessary, because everything can change.
Yes, exactly. And would that be your parting words or your last words to, women of our age in their 40s who might be going through transitions, personal and professional?
I think 40s is something a very important age in women's life, because I'm 43 now, and thinking that I'm not maybe as attractive, as young, or as beautiful through a certain perspective as in my 20s or in my 30s. But I think 40s is something, and maybe even more, 40s is something that I start to enjoy life more, because I can feel more. I feel when I look at something, I feel I can see more depth. I can see more layers inside everything. This gives me not only more pleasure, but also I feel days are longer, moments are longer. So I think
Okay.
that's how I feel actually. I mean, as if I have more veins, I have more light, or I have more eyes and ears to hear. So I think that's a very special period. Probably, I mean, at least in my story, started with 40s. And when I talk with my friends at 50s, even 60s, they say they're like 50s or 60s, every day is better. This is such a beautiful thing to hear, and it's a great hope that this might be something very good in growing.
No, I totally hear you. And I can imagine the energy with which you even speak about life is definitely the energy that is emanating from your work.
I hope so. I hope so.
No, definitely. My final question for you is, like, when you were younger, did you imagine that you would be where you are at now? Or has this all been indeed a miraculous surprise to you?
I had no idea how the journey would be, but I always knew that I would love to create clothes. That was the only thing I knew. And I didn't know which way to follow to, and I didn't know what to do. Even the design vision, I totally wasn't aware. But since I know myself, maybe it's because of my grandmother and mother, I knew that I would do something with fashion. That was the only thing that I was sure of. But I think I explored myself through fashion and creation. So it became a profession that I enjoy.
And Arzu, again, thank you very
Thank
much.
Thank you, Marga. That was great
for
talking
speaking
to you.
us. Thank you so much.
Thank
I really
you.
appreciate this.
Thank you so much.